The flashing red and blue lights cut across the night sky like sharp blades. Judge Vanessa Carter tightened her grip on the steering wheel, trying to calm her racing heart. She was just a few blocks from her home after a long day in court. Her car, a sleek black sedan, purred quietly as she slowed to a stop on the empty street. But within seconds, a police cruiser screeched to a halt behind her, and an officer jumped out with a flashlight in one hand and suspicion burning in his eyes. "Step out of the car," the officer barked. His tone wasn't neutral, it was dripping with accusation, as though he had already decided she was guilty of something. Confused but composed, Vanessa rolled down her window. "Officer, is there a problem?" she asked. The man smirked, his light blinding her eyes. "Yeah, there's a problem. This car is reported stolen. So unless you're about to tell me you stole it, you better step out right now." Her breath caught in her throat. Stolen. This was her car, registered in her name. She had bought it legally, with the money she had earned through years of hard work, late nights, and sacrifices. But none of that mattered in this moment. To him, she wasn't a respected judge with decades of service. She was just another suspect. As she stepped out, the humiliation began. The officer circled her car with exaggerated suspicion, tapping on the windows, opening the doors, even running his hand along the hood as if searching for proof. A neighbor peeked through a curtain across the street. Another passerby slowed their walk to see what was happening. To them, it looked like Vanessa was being caught red-handed. The officer's words cut deeper with every second. "Funny how thieves always have a story," he muttered. "What's yours? You borrowed this from your boyfriend? Or maybe you hot-wired it yourself?" His mocking tone echoed through the night. Vanessa's hands trembled, not with fear, but with controlled anger. She had worked her entire life to earn respect in a world that constantly tried to deny it. She had fought through law school, broken barriers, and finally earned her seat on the bench. Yet here she was, treated like a criminal, accused in front of strangers. She tried to explain, but he cut her off again and again. "Save it for the report. People like you always got excuses." And then, as the humiliation mounted, the officer reached for his cuffs. "Turn around," he ordered. "You're going downtown." Vanessa took a slow breath, her mind racing. She had remained silent long enough, but this was the moment that would change everything. Because in her purse was something that could end this officer's career in a single second. Officer's hand tightened on his radio as he circled the car, his voice sharp and commanding. "Step out of the vehicle," he barked. The crowd of bystanders began to whisper, their phones already raised to record what they thought might be another ugly scene. The woman inside the car sat still, her eyes calm but unblinking. She knew this was not just about a car. It was about something deeper, something that had played out countless times in silence. But this time, she would not stay silent. With deliberate movements, she pushed open the door and stepped out. Her presence was not loud, yet it carried weight. Dressed in a modest but professional suit, she looked nothing like the criminal the officer had painted in his mind. Still, he continued his accusations, raising his voice louder, as if volume could mask his uncertainty. "This car is stolen. You don't belong in it." Then came the moment that changed everything. Slowly, almost too slowly for the officer's comfort, she reached into her handbag. His hand jumped toward his holster, panic flashing in his eyes. But instead of a weapon, she pulled out a leather wallet, opening it with one smooth motion. It was her official identification. She was a judge. Not just any judge, but one who had presided over cases of racial discrimination and abuse of power. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Officer's face drained of color. In that second, the power he thought he owned collapsed around him. His words stumbled, his posture shifted, and his authority slipped like sand between his fingers. The cameras captured everything: the arrogance of his accusations, the truth of her identity, and the humiliation that followed. But the story did not end with a single flash of her ID. The true impact came in the silence that followed. People who had been watching with doubt now looked at her with respect. The officer, once commanding the scene, now looked like the one on trial. He muttered an apology that sounded more like an excuse, yet the damage was already done. The judge, however, did not yell. She did not raise her voice. She simply looked him in the eye and said words that echoed louder than any shout. "You should have asked before you accused." That line, caught on video, spread like wildfire across social media. Within hours, it reached millions of screens. News anchors repeated it. Commentators dissected it. Civil rights activists called it a moment of reckoning. And for the officer, it marked the beginning of the end. The career he had built on intimidation began to crumble not because of violence, but because of truth revealed in the calm defiance of one woman. The public wanted to know more. Who was this judge? Why was her quiet dignity more powerful than the officer's loud accusations? And what would happen next, as the system itself was forced to respond? The silence after Judge Carter flashed her ID was heavier than the loudest siren. The cop's voice cracked as he stammered, trying to reframe his words. But every excuse he reached for only buried him deeper. The crowd wasn't buying it. By now, half the block had pulled out their phones, capturing every second. The video showed everything clearly. His smugness, his accusation, his refusal to believe her when she told him who she was. And now, the world was about to see the exact moment his authority collapsed. Judge Carter didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She simply stated her name, her position, and pointed to her ID again, making sure every camera caught the emblem. "This," she said firmly, "is who I am. And you tried to humiliate me in front of my own neighbors. Because of the color of my skin." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some people nodded, others whispered angrily, but no one looked away. They all knew they were witnessing the end of his career. The officer's partner had been silent until now, but even he shifted uncomfortably, stepping back as though wanting no part of the disaster. He kept glancing at the cameras, at the crowd, at his colleague who was sweating and pale. It was clear that nothing he could say would undo the damage. The law was on TI just against them anymore. The law was standing right in front of them, wrapped in robes of justice, and she wasn't going to back down. Word spread quickly. By the next day, the video had millions of views online. Headlines exploded across the country. Judge confronts racist cop in viral video. News channels replayed the clip on loop. Social media turned Judge Carter into a symbol overnight. People praised her calm strength, the way she stood tall in the face of humiliation and flipped the script without ever losing her dignity. The officer, on the other hand, faced the storm of accountability. Internal Affairs launched a full investigation. Within weeks, he was suspended, then dismissed. His partner quietly resigned before the case reached further hearings. But for Judge Carter, the moment wasn't about revenge. It was about respect, not just for herself, but for every black man and woman who had been wrongly accused, silenced, or humiliated by authority figures who abused their power. She became a louder voice for change, speaking at conferences and panels about the dangers of bias and the importance of justice without prejudice. In the end, one man's arrogance had cost him his badge, but it had given her a platform far greater than any courtroom could offer. She didn't just win the confrontation, she rewrote the rules of it. The message was clear for anyone who dared repeat the same mistake. Truth, dignity, and justice will always outshine fear and hate.